Rubia. Hello there. Sorry to keep you waiting. I, of course, forgot one bowl that I needed, so I just quickly was grabbing that out. And Corvus is here. Nice to have you both with me this morning. Today we are going to make my family recipe. Oh, by the way, thanks for joining us. I'm Virginia with Virginia Bakes, and I've been doing some lives recently, trying to get better at it. It's a little less nervous talking on camera, but welcome. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, today we are going to make one of my family's two pound cake recipes. This is sort of the older one. Let me show you these recipes here. So this is 4 copies of the same recipe that came out of my family's box of family recipes. Handwritten sour cream pancake, all the ingredients, the instructions. This is on a piece of note from my uncle Bobby's business in Coleman, Alabama. So it came from Aunt Carolyn. Sour cream pound cake, and then the 4th version. So I've checked them all. They're all consistent with the ingredients and the instructions. So this is the one I remember Granny making when I was a little girl. This involves the folding in of stiff egg whites. My mom had another recipe that she switched to in later years that she called, and I'll do it at some point, but it's a 2-step. And I don't know what the second step is. You basically put everything in a bowl, mix it up real good, and stick it in a pan. Maybe the second step is sticking it in a pan. But we're going to do this one today because this is the one I really remember Granny doing. And I don't know that I had ever made this recipe, I'll be honest, until yesterday. So I learned a couple things, and I'll adjust with today's method, just a smidge. But let me put this aside, and then we're going to talk about the first step. Normally I would prepare the pan. I would have all my ingredients, including my eggs, at room temperature. But for this recipe, we need to separate the eggs, the whites from the yolks, and that is much easier to do when they're cold. So I wanted to get that going so that they could then be coming to room temperature before we need them. And because the egg whites are easier to whip when they're room temperature, and of course egg yolks, you just generally tend to want your eggs at room temperature. But for the separating part, we wanted them cold. So I just pulled them out of the fridge, they're still cold. So for that step, I'm going to use a bowl for the yolks, a little glass one to crack them into so I can see around the sides and make sure there's no shells, and also make sure I'm not getting any egg yolks into the whites, otherwise the whites will not whip up. So I've also got I have this nice glass bowl for our batter, but I'm going to use this second bowl to whip the egg whites. So I'm just going to put the egg whites directly into here. So we need 6 of them, so let me think here. I'm going to set that, can you see it a little bit? Okay. Yolks, eggs, and then I have my 2 sticks of butter softened in my bowl. So I like to take one of the wrappers, keep things nice and clean. I put the bowl over that because it will dribble. I'll have some dribbles of eggs down the side. And this will help me just kind of keep a nice clean space. Maybe, hi, I'm writing your recipe. Oh, good. Good morning, Heather. Welcome in. Rubia, how did you find me? I'm so excited to have you here. Honestly, so far it's been friends and family that I've texted, hey, come watch my thing. It's nice to have, unless you are family and I don't know it. Are you a cousin of some sort? Okay, back to the cracking of eggs. Okay, the way I do it, there's several methods you can use. Some of you tried them yesterday, and I'll demonstrate. I didn't really care for them. But my main method that I use most is I just give it a good crack on a surface, open it up, and then just kind of back and forth with the yolk, allowing the egg white to run off into my little bowl. There's some extra. It's okay if egg white gets into the egg yolk. It is not okay if egg yolk gets into the egg white. Because the fats in there will keep the whites from mixing up. So we're good. That's one. Okay, so that's the method I use most. I saw online, I have never done this, until yesterday. But you can use a slotted spoon to catch the egg, and then the egg whites in theory will fall through the slotted spoon and the yolk will sit on top. So let's try that and see what you think. YouTube suggestion, yay, it works. Ruby, are you a big fan of baking? Ooh, I did not crack that one particularly well. So this one, maybe it's my, okay, well that didn't, that didn't work. Well, this will give me, I didn't care. I tried this yesterday a couple of times and I just didn't care for it. Maybe you have a better, you can give it a try and see what you think. I'm gonna go with the, my typical way of doing it. Okay, this will give me a chance to demonstrate a different way of, which also is another way I don't care for because it's kind of messy. And I'm gonna risk doing this straight into the bowl. Let me move this over actually. Is basically you strain the egg yolk with your fingers. So clean hands, I wash my hands a lot. Okay, then, well, my autofocus is losing its mind. Okay, so I mean, does it work? Yes, it works. I think I like it better than the slotted spoon, but now my hand is a drippy mess and I can't stand that, so let me wash it real quick. Too messy for me. Let's see. So that's 2 so far. We need 6 total. Just gonna go back to my method that I've been doing for forever. Back and forth. And careful not to put too much strength. Oh, there goes the yolk. So I'm getting that out of there before my yolk, which did break, any of it falls into the egg whites. Another good reason for doing these separately like this and adding them, separating the eggs from the whites into this little guy before adding them into the full thing is if you were to do all this over the bowl of whites, can you imagine getting to like the 6th egg and you get a smidge of yolk in there? Then you've just wasted, I mean you can use it for something else, but you would basically have wasted all those eggs worth of whites. So this way I can make sure, just doubly making sure that no yolks get in there. Okay, that's 4. You're good. Oh no. Oh no, I've done a terrible job cracking this one. You guys, so embarrassing. We're gonna make it work. I'll just use the finger method. It's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clear. And last. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're okay. We're good. Are we good? That I think is broken, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put them in there and not risk my whites. Okay. Eggs are just too dang expensive, y'all, to be risking them. Okay, we can get rid of this. I'm gonna quickly wash my fingers because I'm a mess again. All right, do a little cleaning up. Okay, so I can set these egg whites aside out of my way for now to let them come to room temperature. And yolks I'll need in a few minutes. I'll just kind of set them right here and get this out of the way. And now we can kind of go with the typical, you know, get your pan ready. So for this one, I'm using a tube pan, like Granny, the way Granny did it. It's good enough for Granny, it's good enough for me. You can also bake one of these in a loaf pan. I think probably a bundt pan. I've never done that. But I like, the problem with doing it in a bundt pan is I like that kind of like pretty, you get the pretty crack on the top. And so if you did it in a bundt pan, you would have that, turn it out, and that pretty crack would be now on the bottom, which you might prefer. You might want a nice, smooth, sort of molded, formed top. And that's, hey, you do you. Okay, so I'm going to take my butter. I did this yesterday, kind of in 2 separate pieces. I don't know that it's necessarily better. But we're gonna get this nice and greased up so our cake releases later. And then we're going to also flour this. And I learned a method. I took a trip once to London years ago. I'm gonna go back so bad. And it was just sort of at the beginning of my like reawakening of baking, my reabakening. I wish Colin was here. He's my nephew Colin. He would have loved that. My reabakening, and learned this trick when I was there. I took a little baking class at this lady's house. It was like an afternoon tea baking class. It was so cute and adorable, and I had the best time. And she used a dredger full of flour to flour her cake pan, and it was so convenient. And I use it all the time now for like flouring the surface, for, you know, kneading bread or for rolling out dough of some sort, like cookie dough or pie dough or whatever. Instead of getting large clumps of flour that you then spread out with your fingers. And I'm not good at that like little pretty toss that, like, I don't know, Paul Hollywood does when he's getting his surface ready for making flour. So we're just putting some flour on top of the butter and shaking it all around. I'm gonna put this guy in here where all the surface is covered. I think we're good. Okay, so I'm gonna call that good. I'm gonna set that aside. We'll come back to it later. And where are we now? Okay, now we are ready to weigh our sugar and add it to the bowl. A little shout out to my neighbor, Taylor. I actually borrowed sugar from her. Hey, Heather. Which part is smart? Do tell. I got to do that neighbory thing of, hey, neighbor, do you have sugar I can borrow? Because, of course, I went to the store and I always assume, just like with the cinnamon, I always assume I have sugar and I'm going to have enough. But it does call for 3 cups. So when I made one yesterday, I looked at what I had left and I don't think I have enough. So Taylor will be getting some pound cake today as a thank you for loaning me sugar. All right, so we need 3 cups of sugar, which in grams is 594. So let's get that weighed out. What did I say, 394? 594 grams of sugar. It may not all fit in this bowl, actually. Let's do this. I don't know. We can do it. We can fit it in here. 557, 593, oh my gosh, 593, 594. There we go. Nope. You see, I dropped the spoon in there. Oops. Close that up and put it away because we're done with this. This sugar will go in with the butter. I'm going to use this bowl later for something. The sour cream mixture. So I'm just going to kind of leave it out. I'll put it over here. Any more counter space? Okay. Hopefully this is the first time I've used the stand mixer, during the live, so hopefully it's not too loud. Y'all let me know. Oh. Just want to start on low so I don't make a mess. That's not too bad, yeah. Anything we can do while that's going. The next step is going to be to add the egg yolks one at a time, which if I hadn't broken to would have been much easier. They just kind of plop out on their own. So we will do what we can to get one egg worth at a time. Once this is creamed, we'll start adding those in. We could talk about, okay, I thought this was interesting. So I was looking up, I wanted to know, okay, so what's some history of pound cake? Because it's just something I ate as a kid. Granny made and I ate, and I never gave it much more thought than that. So I was curious, like, why is it called a pound cake? Is it because by the end it weighs a pound, there's a pound worth of cake? No, actually, it is much heavier than a pound. It's because the original, it's thought that the original cake recipe was 1 pound each of sugar, egg, flour, and butter. And back in the 1700s when this was invented. And it was easy for people to remember the recipe. I guess it wasn't as easy to write things down back then and keep track of that. So something like a pound of 4 ingredients, a pound each, was very easy to remember, to pass on to others. And so the recipe spread really quick, and that's why it's called a pound cake, because it's a pound each. Which reminds me of, so during my reawakening, oh, is that why you were laughing, Heather? The reawakening? It happened because of the Great British Baking Show, back when it was Mary Berry and Sue and Mel. And I ended up making a Victoria sponge, Mary Berry style, of you crack and weigh 4 eggs. It's fine, okay, good. Because I'm going to need to turn it up here in a minute. I want to get this getting creamy. So you crack and you weigh 4 eggs, and then whatever that weighs, you do equal amounts of self-raising flour, which is different than self-rising. Self-raising is like the British, the UK version. Maybe it's across all of Europe, but it's a different formulation of flour to baking soda, bicarbonate that they call it over there. And we have baking soda, baking powder, and so our self-rising is a different formula than their self-raising. So I ended up ordering self-raising flour off of Amazon and got it so that I could try this recipe. And I made it a couple times, it works great. So you crack 4 eggs and weigh them, and then whatever that weight is, you add the equal weight of butter, self-raising flour, and sugar. And then you cream the butter and the sugar, beat in the eggs, stir in the flour, and you've got a Victoria sponge cake, which is just super easy to remember as well. So it's kind of the same, it's a lighter cake than this. But it's basically the same kind of thing, honestly. What would be different here? We've got butter, we've got sugar, flour, and sour cream. So that's kind of what makes it different. All right, so we're creaming the egg and the butter and the sugar together so it's nice and pale and fluffy. You can see that. I have a much better, brighter, well, starting to get a little cloud cover, but earlier today as I was getting set up, I was like, oh my gosh, it's clear blue skies. The past 2 Sundays, we've had lots of storm clouds and some rain even. So now today we get to have a little bit brighter of the atmosphere, which is nice. It goes along with the lemons really well, the lemon flavor of today's recipe. Yesterday when I was making this, I made it with the hand mixer. Do not recommend. It's just not, especially one like mine, it's a battery operated cordless, and it's just not powerful. It's not super powerful, so it just took forever to cream the butter and the sugar together. Forever. And then it was just really struggling as we're adding the ingredients. The batter's just getting thicker and thicker and thicker. that it was not worth it. So if you've got a stand mixer, do it. Can you do it with a hand mixer? Of course you can. It's going to take you a little longer. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off and attempt to add 1 egg worth of yolk. All 4 versions of this recipe say to add them 1 at a time and beat well after each, so that's what we're going to do. I'm nothing if not an instruction follower, right, Heather? Rule follower, as some friends might say. And those friends know who they are. We talked about this the other night. That's 1 egg yolk, 2 and a little extra egg. No, get back here. Heather, are you there? I have rearranged the camera setup. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Last week I was really struggling. The overhead camera was like over there and my camera was over here and I was like stretched across doing everything this way, but I think I've got a much easier, much more ergonomic setup this week. Looks good, thanks. Thanks, I do. Rubia, Heather's my sister. One of many. And as a sister, she has to tell me when I could be doing something better. Heather, what are we going to do with all this pound cake? Let me just ask you that. I'm about to have 2 pound cakes. I'm going to give some to Taylor as a thanks for the sugar. And I say what if we cut the rest into quarters, wrap them up real good. Cake freezes so well. So I'm thinking we cut it into quarters, wrap it up real good, and we could have pound cake with some of when we get in the mood for Southern meal comfort food, like if we have a day of let's make some fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, and we could have pound cake for dessert. I'm just gonna put the rest. I think this might be. I lost track of the count, but I think this is 2 yolks worth because 2 of them ended up cracking earlier. It can freeze, yeah. Cake freezes really well, so we'll just do that. So I'll be bringing over a bunch of, we put the shortcake from last week, the second one we put in the freezer over there. We're gonna have so much baked goods in your freezer. Alright, I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl and give it one final. And this will also help get all that egg off of the spatula. And then I'm going to kind of turn this on a little higher and make sure this is super fluffy and whipped. I'm going to use my other butter wrapper and just spoon this. This can go away. This can. Alright, our next step will be to do the zest and the extract. So for that, if you don't have fresh lemons, that's okay. Kind of the ratio or the equivalent is 1 teaspoon of lemon extract is equivalent to 1 lime worth of, like 1 teaspoon of lime zest. So I'm going to do a little bit of both. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a teaspoon of lemon extract. So if you didn't have fresh limes, but you had everything else, just do 2 teaspoons of lemon extract. If you have no lemon extract, but you happen to have lemons, do 2 lemons. Okay, so with the lemon zest, here's how I like to do. I always see on shows people zesting like this down and then like looking and turning and looking and turning. And I find that to be very awkward because you want to make sure that you're only zesting this outer skin, the very brightest yellow part with all the lovely citrus oils in it. That's what gives it the flavor. If you get down into the underneath, like that matte finish, like white pith area, that's bitter. We don't want any of that. Well, I find if you do this, you can get into the white and not realize it until it's too late, unless you turn and look every time. So what I like to do is switch these up, turn this upside down, and I scrape it along like that, and then I can see exactly what I'm doing. And all the zest kind of collects up in here for me. And so I can kind of see how much zest I've got. So just gonna go around this guy. Got my contacts in today instead of my readers. It was a little better for going from this to that to this to that distance. But sometimes I still am like, what's happening? Heather, zippers, cream corn, 2 buttery biscuits, and pound cake. Yes, don't forget the gravy. Did I say gravy earlier? I've been eating cream corn lately from last season that Hope and I put up with Miss Claire. I had some bags of frozen cream corn from Georgia, like fresh off that morning they were picked, gotten out of the field and brought over, and we processed them then and there, put them right in the freezer. Okay, so we want a teaspoon. Let's kind of see what we think here. That's looking teaspoonish to me, so I'm gonna just kind of do that. Yeah, I think we're good. What's funny is that, like, well, funny. I've seen people say, oh, like one medium lemon is a teaspoon worth, right? Well, some of these lemons I grabbed individually. The rest of these lemons came as a, is that gonna autofocus? Focus on something. You gotta focus on something though. Like pick a thing and focus. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay, there we go. So you can see the difference in size. Like this came in a bag, like a 1 pound bag of lemons, and you can see how much smaller they are, right? So yesterday I was using these, and I definitely had to go through 2 of them. Is that? I had to go through 2 of them to get a teaspoon worth. You can see I've basically gotten a teaspoon worth off of not even quite one of these. So I'm gonna stop there. Add this to that. I'm gonna kind of bang the excess out of there. We're good with this and this. Oh, there's some lemon zest. Let's get that. It's not whatnot. Oh, we will need, let me not put that in the sink. I'm gonna need this again in a moment. In a few minutes, that for the glaze. So we can set that back aside. I'm gonna mix this in. And now we are ready for the triple sifting of the cake flour. All 4 versions of this recipe called for it to be triple sifted. That's what we're gonna do. So I've got 2 bowls and a strainer, and I did this yesterday and it all fit, so hopefully I can repeat that success. Here is my cake flour. Turn this on. I need a big spoon. And we need of cake flour 3 cups. That's 360 grams of cake flour. So 140. I'm gonna have to do math here, aren't I? No, let's go to 200, and then I know I just need 160. It won't all fit in the strainer, so. Granny had one of those, it's like a big cup and you poured it in the top and you cranked it. I don't have one of those. I've been using this guy and it's been working pretty well. It's 200, oh, it kept the same count on them. So I can just go to 360. Silly Jenny. Silly Virginia. 3, 40, 50, 61. Come on. And 60. Okay. Put it away. Heather, tell me truly. Rubia, you as well, if you're watching at the moment. Would you triple sift this if you were me? Heather, you triple sifting like Granny said. So that was 1 sift. Part of me is like, is this really necessary? Surely 1 sift is okay, and it's cake flour. It doesn't clump in the first place, right? I'm doing it. I'm going to teach all bad habits, and don't want Granny having something to say to me one day. BT Dubs, I've got the oven going at 300. Pound cake is like cook low and slow, sort of a thing. And it does take a while to bake. Like at least, I should say at least an hour and a half. I mean, we'll talk about how to know that it's done when we get to that point. Mine, the one I made yesterday, took a good 2 hours. So just be prepared for that part to be a while. Your house smells so good. Oh my gosh, it smelled so good in here yesterday. Very nostalgic, very much like Granny's kitchen. This is our 3rd and final sift. Can you hear the background music at all? Is it too low? Background music would be nice for moments like this. And there's just not a lot to say. Okay. That is not going in just yet. Next, we have to prepare the sour cream mixture, and that's what this little guy is for. I used the sugar earlier. Okay, so we said that we need 1 cup of sour cream, which is 227 grams. And this is at room temperature as well. went a little bit over, but I figure some of it's gonna get stuck to the sides of the bowl as I'm getting it out. Okay, and then to this we are going to stir in the baking soda. So this recipe, we're gonna be whipping the egg whites, which will add, which adds volume to the cake, helps it rise during the bake. So in theory, you shouldn't need this baking soda, but like, were we just hedging our bets, Granny? Is that what, Aunt Caroline? Is it a thing of making sure we get a rise by doing some of both? It works. It does work. Oh, well, I'll tell you something I learned from yesterday. Do I need this again? I'm gonna need it in a little bit for the glaze, so I'll just set that aside. Okay, so now we're gonna be adding these alternately. I'm gonna start with flour. I'm gonna do like a quarter flour, third, quarter, third, quarter, third, quarter. And stir these, well, gently mix them in. So we don't want to, we want a tender cake, so we don't want to do too much mixing of the flour and start creating any gluten bonds and all of that, but we do want to make sure it's mixed well. So that looks good. That's much faster than with the hand mixer. Ah. This is Trixie. No! Made a mess. See, there's my 2 grams of sour cream that I went over when I weighed it. If Granny said 3 times, then I would do it. That's how I do it. Granny said it. Granny and Aunt Caroline. Okay. Another 2 grams on the machine. Dang it. Almost there. So after this setup, or this step, after this step, we're going to take the bowl and the beater off, and switch to the egg whites with the whisk attachment, and get those whipped up, and then do something that I tend to be very scared of doing, which is folding in egg whites. Just makes me nervous, but I know I need to get better at it and get my reps in so that I'm not as scared, because there's so many recipes that you need to have that technique for, and I don't want to limit myself just because I'm scared to fold egg whites into batters. So I'm gonna do it. Now that's the main difference with this recipe and the one that Mom switched to later in life. Mom's version does not require the whipping of egg whites and folding them in. It's like a 1 bowl process. Put everything in an order listed, and then you mix it up real good. I got a new set of bowls, you guys. After last week, I was struggling with my bowl selection. So let me do something about that. And I got these wonderful melamine. They're all kinds of sizes. You've seen a couple. And they're working out great. I enjoy them. And they're dishwasher safe. I'll just clean some of this up. after this one, maybe I should have done it sooner, but after this one I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl. I'm going to get this sour cream off of here, make sure it makes its way into this batter. And we'll give it one final mix. I found them at Williams-Sonoma. I had a gift card that I had kind of forgotten about and found in my, I think that's a nice treat to forget about a gift card, and found it in my office desk drawer. Like, ooh, what am I going to do with this? Of course I'm going to spend it on baking in some way. And so yeah, I got them, and I got that green, a set of the green baking sheets that you saw earlier when I was doing the tube pan prep. As you can tell, I have a color scheme. There's 5 colors: orange, hot pink, light pink, like a flowery color, oatmeal-y color, creamy color, and then this dark like teal green. So I found the baking trays, and then the nesting bowls, the 6 melamine bowls, and they all have lids, which is going to be so handy for things like you often need to, if you're making bread, like after you mix it together, you need to let it rest for, cover and rest for however much time. Like an idea I had for making King Arthur Flour's recipe of the year, which is their bubbly focaccia. It needs bowl folds, and then you cover and rest it between each bowl fold. Well, with the lids on that, oh my gosh, it'd be so easy. Not that, wrapping it with some saran wrap isn't easy, but I feel like I'd be doing a little bit better for the environment by having the lids and not using single-use stuff as much as possible. Okay, so this can come off. We'll get the rest of as much of this batter off of here as we can. The good stuff. And then we can get started on the egg whites, which honestly we should just get started on. I can do this while the egg whites are going, because it will take a minute or two. Whatever. Where am I going? Nowhere. Do I need this again? No, I don't. Okay. There. That's that. Now for the egg whites, which have been sitting out for a bit. Should be fine for whipping now. So yesterday, why do I feel like I don't remember? I did it with the stand mixer yesterday, because after trying to do this with the hand mixer, like, there's no way I'm whipping egg whites. I'm gonna start slow for a minute or two. Let that get started. So it just says to stiffly beat egg whites. So you've got soft peak. That's where, when you're doing like the peak method of egg whites, it's like if you were to take the whisk and hold it up, there's usually like a little dollop that has come off the bottom as you've removed it. So that dollop, that's where you're checking for a peak. So if it folds over real fast, that's a soft peak. If it stands up on its own, that's a stiff peak, and then there's somewhere in between. So I went to pretty stiff peaks, because it said beat stiffly, and folded those in, which took some effort, but it was fine. It worked out. I was, of course, very nervous that I was knocking all the air out of the egg whites, but apparently not, because, as I will show you later, pound cake will usually have a crack through the top, like an opening. And it's kind of a feature. It's really pretty, I think. And but what else happened was there ended up being a gap, and I'll show you in a bit, between the crusty top, like a Hershey Kiss Peak. Yes, exactly, like a Hershey Kiss Peak. There was a gap of air between the top crust set pretty much faster than the inside baked. Of course it would, and then as the inside baked and all of the air bubbles in the egg whites expanded and lifted the cake, it pushed the top up and out. That's what kind of creates the crack. But if you have, I looked it up yesterday after this happened because I was like, I kind of sometimes remember that this happened to grannies or moms. And I was like, is this normal? Let me just make sure. And it's kind of not normal. So it was like there was too much leavening, and then afterwards it shrank back together a little bit. And that, because the crust had set, the shrinking of the inside cake pulled away from the set crust, and so then there was a gap there. I hope that makes sense. So I looked it up, and some of the solutions would be to, some places they don't, if they're going to add the egg whites, they don't add a leavener, a chemical leavener like the baking soda. So you could either omit the baking soda, which I might do next time. I didn't want to do it today. I thought today what I would do differently is not beat them to stiff peaks. Because that was the other solution to try, is to not do stiff peaks. All right, that, it just, I don't know if you could see that in the, let me see if it shows up. Yeah, that's not stiff at all, so we're gonna go a little longer. I'll just rip right off of the beater. So we're not gonna go to stiff peaks. We're gonna go somewhere more than soft, but not quite stiff. That makes sense. So not a Hershey Kiss today. You can see the tracks in the white, the tracks of the whisk being left behind. All right, let's see. I don't know a good place to show that. So there's the peak. It's kind of staying. It's not super upright, but it's not falling over. I'm gonna call that good. It's much less than what I did yesterday, I can tell you that. So we're good there. Now for the scary, not scary part, pulling them in. Oops. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a couple of spoonfuls, 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and then you want to gently incorporate these, fold by hand is what this is called, into the batter. So I feel like the way Mary Berry says is you go around the outside and you cut through the middle. Then around the outside, you cut through the middle. This is basically how I did it yesterday, and it seemed to be fine, obviously, because my cake ended up rising a little too much. So maybe it's not as hard as I think to do. Okay, that's good. A little bit of an arm workout there. Some thick batter. It's not quite 4 pounds worth of stuff. It's not a pound of butter, it's a half a pound of butter. And I could weigh it when it's done. I have a scale. Curious to know. Or I could just add up the eggs. For a large egg, it's like 50 to 55 grams. So I could do the math just from the list of ingredients, or I could just weigh the thing at the end. If I really need to know. And do I really need to know? Probably not. Round the outside. Oh my gosh, Heather. I sing that to myself all the time. I can't remember any other part of that song, but there's something about going around the outside of something. I say that in my head. Around the outside, around the outside. Heather was the one that could quote all the Eminem songs from that album. So I'm not doing here is like really stirring, trying to be gentle and keep, I don't know how it keeps the air bubbles. Apparently it does, like it seems to be completely incorporated and gone. But it works, or maybe that's the baking soda working. All right, just the rest of this. I don't need this anymore. I hate when I put like a spatula or something away or in the sink with dirty, the rest of the dirty dishes, and then realize, crap, I needed that. And then I have to dirty something else. That's annoying. So the past couple of recipes have not been chocolate. My favorite sweet flavor is chocolate. It just is, always has been, always will be. And as a kid, I don't think I talked about this last week, did I? As a kid, I didn't really care for, kind of wouldn't really bother eating desserts. Even Granny's pound cake, I barely ever ate it because it wasn't chocolate. Strawberry shortcake, I'm like, it's good, but it's not chocolate. And then as I got into baking as an adult, or back into baking as an adult, I started really paying attention to non-chocolate flavored desserts and enjoying them. So like, I'm really looking forward to this. The strawberry shortcake is great. Those sticky bun donuts were delicious. They just seem more cake-like than cake donut-like. Like cake donuts, I think, should be kind of a heavier, heavier, denser texture, and they just were not. Okay. But anyway, so like this is an instance of like, I actually look forward to something like this with like a cup of hot tea. Or even just, iced tea. This is the sort of thing that you would take when you go visiting. And how many times did we go visiting with Granny? She'd make us get dressed and hop in the car, and we'd go visiting and go hang out with family members, like Aunt Caroline when she was in town. Things like that. So this makes me think of visiting, right? All right, so now I'm just gonna double check. We did everything. We have the butter, we have the sugar, we have the eggs, lemon zest. Cake flour, sour cream, baking soda, we're good. So this we can now put into our pan. It says to pour in. So here's that green baking sheet I was telling you about. How great is that? So pretty. It says to pour it in. It does kind of pour, but it's pretty thick. And like Mary Berry would probably say, don't pour it from such a great height that you lose all the air bubbles. So I'm going to try to do that. The other thing is, as a kid, I will not encourage you to eat raw batter because of the uncooked egg is dangerous and all of that. Definitely, as a kid, I enjoyed the batter. And we'd get so upset when Granny would like really clean out the bowl and not leave any batter behind. Or not leave much at all. Another thing she would do is she would bake these things, and we weren't allowed to have it because it was for a work function or a family reunion or something. So she would bake ahead of time, and then we'd have these cakes and such smelling up the house so good, and we weren't allowed to have them. It was for family or for company or whatever. I'm going to kind of try to level this out some, make sure I don't have too much of an even top. It does go a little liquidy, but I'm not sure it's really enough to like some batters are pretty fluid and liquidy, so as you pour it in, it levels itself, or then in the oven it will, as it heats and then softens up, it'll level then, but I don't think this is really one of them. Okay, so that's good to go into the oven, 300 degrees for an hour and a half. Now, mine yesterday, depending on your oven temp, depending on your oven temp, could take more, and the kind of pan that you're using could take more time, less time, but about an hour and a half should do it, and then you'll just want to start checking the doneness. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. I'll bake that later. In a moment I'll pull out the one I did yesterday. First, we are going to work on the glaze. So the glaze for something like a pound cake, Mom only ever just said mix up some powdered sugar and lemon juice to make glaze, and I think she would pour it on, or she would go to Publix and have coffee cake on hand, and it was not to be touched. Yes, I remember the coffee cakes, the bar, it was like a bar form coffee cake with the pecans on top, and that was her visiting too. She had lots of good life lessons. Also, never go to bed with a messy kitchen or main room, because you never know what might happen in the middle of the night. and fresh underwear, right, in case you were in a car accident and had to go to the hospital. You have fresh underwear on. What was I saying? Oh, the glaze. So in Mom's version of the recipe, it doesn't actually have the amounts. So what I did was I looked around my collection of baking cookbooks, and I went to this lovely option, Cheryl Day's Treasury of Southern Baking. And I haven't made a lot from it, but what I have made has been a hit. So I'm sure we'll get to some of these. Look at that. Okay, so I found in here a lemon glaze. And because I trust Cheryl Day, we're going to use hers. King Arthur has one that's made from granulated sugar and lemon juice that you heat together. You don't boil, and then you when the cake comes out of the oven and it's still warm, you poke holes and you pour the glaze, and it gets down those holes and into the cake, and that's really nice. Let me not cut myself. Mom's was more like not really a frosting. It was thinner than a frosting. It was more truly like a glaze, like it was white. You could kind of see it. I can't remember, Amy, Heather, if you did give me that one. Yes, you did. And Heather, the cream cheese frosting that I use on the King Arthur carrot cake comes from her book, and it is so good. So good. That's the one I make for Hope for her birthday. Going back to my story, getting sidetracked. What was my story? Oh, the glaze. So, Amy, Heather, do you remember if Mom would put it on warm so it would kind of like soak down into the cake? Do you have any memory of that? I cannot remember. You could kind of do it both ways. Like if you put frosting, like a full-on frosting on a warm cake, it's going to melt that butter, and it'll go down into the cake, soak down into the cake itself and get gooey, which, might be a nice thing. You can also, normally you would wait until the cake is cold to frost it, right? So that you don't lose that frosting. So the glaze, the glaze was the best part. Like the edges that had all the glaze on it, so good. So for this, I cannot remember how, Granny didn't put a glaze. None of these copies of this recipe called for any kind of a glaze or a topping at all. Or a syrup, like a simple syrup. Sometimes that's kind of how the King Arthur is more of like a simple syrup, a lemon flavored simple syrup. It's just water, lemon juice, powdered sugar, and a splash of vanilla. But in her two-step pound cake, Amy, it didn't call for it. It was just juice and sugar. There wasn't a splash of vanilla. She drizzled it on when the cake came out of the oven. It would get crispier over time. So it must have been when it's warm. Amy, if she did it when it came out of the oven, and then Heather, if it got crispy over time, it was when it was warm, like a glazed donut. Yep, exactly. So that's what I'm going to attempt. Now, of course, my cake I made yesterday is no longer warm. You could put yours on after you get it out of the pan and put it on a rack to finish cooling. You could drizzle this on at that point. You could even maybe poke some holes like King Arthur suggested, and it'll get all down in there and gooey, and kind of go over the sides too if there's enough of it, and glaze the sides a little bit. So what we're going to do is, using Cheryl Day's glaze recipe, since Mom did not give any indication of quantities, she got into adding vanilla to everything when she started making her out of it. Well, we'll stick with the lemon flavor. We'll stick with Cheryl Day's for now. So that is, oh my goodness, I didn't have it written down. What did the description say? 250? Pretty sure it was 250 grams of powdered sugar. And then the zest and juice of 1 lemon. I'm going to use one of the bigger ones just to be safe. So this cake that I just made that I will bake, and it's going to take a while to bake, I'll definitely put the glaze on it warm. And then I could do a side-by-side taste test. I know for sure what's the better. I'm going to say it's probably going to be when it's warm. She would do it on the cake pan because it would collect a bit around the bottom. Yes, that was the other thing is I went ahead and put my finished cake on a cake plate. That's what you're talking about, like a cake plate. So that anything that drizzles down the side or in the center, it'll pool a bit. So when you go to make your slices and serve those out, you can gather some of that extra glaze. And it doesn't go to waste. Because probably most people might do that over a rack with a tray underneath, or a baking like parchment paper underneath to catch the extra glaze that falls down and off. But then what are you going to do with that? Like, that's sad not to have that when you're eating your slice. All right, so again, we're going to do the zest of a lemon, avoiding the pith. Can you see the difference? Yeah, you can see the difference. Like, it's shiny and then not shiny. So we don't want that not shiny part. And then, you know, something like a glaze, you can adjust it to your liking for thickness. If you want it thicker, you could do more of like a frosting. Thinner, just add less sugar, more juice. So we're gonna we'll do the juice of 1 lemon, the zest of a lemon, and the 250 grams. Don't waste it off. Exactly, don't waste it. What a waste. And then we'll stir this up and see how the consistency, and if we like it, and then we'll adjust as necessary. All right, I think that's plenty. Then I'm going to kind of smush this to try to get the juices a little easier to come out. This little guy, it's not quite the right green. I got him at like one of those, was it Fancy Affiliate or maybe Renninger in Orlando or Lake Mary? The glaze was definitely really tart, so it didn't take much in a bite to get that cake. Yeah, exactly. And the lemon in the, I resisted the urge to cut up the cake I made yesterday because I wanted to do that on camera. But you know, woe is me a little bit when I pulled it out off of the cake, like the Tupperware thing that I kept it in overnight to put it on the cake plate. A little bit from the bottom stuck to the Tupperware thingy. And so, you know, I had to do what I had to do and try that bit. And it was great. It was the lemon was more on the mild side. So definitely having this, I mean, you could taste it. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it wasn't overwhelming. So that allows for having this glaze on top to add that extra kick. All right, we're going to list this together and see if we need to adjust anything. Another bowl from my melamine set. I love it. And they also had these in the green, but I thought with the green trays, which I think I can get the trays in pink. So this is kind of on the thick side. Yeah, I'm gonna cut up this other lemon that I had zested and add some of that. Whoops. This one that I had zested for the cake batter. This a lot of time to make it more pourable. I really want it a more pourable consistency so I can get it over the edges. My little whisk is struggling to get through it, it's so thick. I mean, when you say something like the juice of one lemon, you know, how big was the lemon? How juicy is it? Is it a dry lemon? Was it a dry growing season? And so there's not much juice in it. Like, you just really have to, you could measure it out. Google what is the typical standard for the juice of one lemon, which I'm going to say is probably 2 tablespoons. Can add some water. Yeah, I can. But I got all this juice. What do you think? A little more? No, I think that's good. That'll go down the sides, yeah. Good, what do you think? Should I do a little taste test? Patooey, it's terrible. Get it out of here. Okay. Oh my gosh, so good. Let's get this out of the way. Straighten up a smidge. I don't know why I think that looks better closed. And bring over the finish from yesterday. Okay, so let's talk about what's happened here. This, if you can see it, you can see there's a gap between the crust and the cake inside. It's gonna taste great. I'm not worried about that. It does look a bit messy. But there are things we could do in this situation. You could make a thicker, what I'm gonna do is kind of break the top down where it's really sticking up. And we're gonna glue that in place with our glaze, okay? Really, it should look more like this side. I don't know why this one puffed up more than this side did, but this side there's not a gap. So I'm very happy. I'm gonna cut into that side in a moment when we cut it open. So for this side, like worst case scenario, cut it up into cubits, make a trifle, add some fresh jam, some fresh fruit, some fresh cream, whipped cream, and you make a trifle, and no one will know that this happened to your top. Another solution would be it could be that my oven, did I turn it? Maybe we need to be turning halfway through. That probably could have helped bake it a little even more evenly, because this side did not do it, but this side did. So it kind of tells me that maybe my oven is not baking evenly. I had it on convection, so it should have done okay. Another thing is to make more of a frosting, make something thicker to kind of cover this and glue it all together. I mean, the glaze will glue it all together, but if you wanted to cover all the cracking and the bits that have come off entirely, like there's the cake underneath, then make a thicker frosting. That would be fine too. Or you can just go ahead and cut it into slices and serve it as slices instead of a whole cake. But it's gonna taste fantastic. So no big deal. I think I have one more. Yes. Okay. So let's get the whisk out of the way. I love the little flecks of yellow in there. Can you see? Can you see? I don't know if it's coming. There we go. It's focusing on the flecks of yellow from the glaze. I mean, from the zest. So then we're going to just drizzle this on. And if we freeze this, I wonder how the glaze will do with the freezing. Should I wait and glaze the other one when we thaw it out for dessert or visiting sometime? What do you think? Glaze it before or after the freezing? Probably technically after would be better. This might be a little too much glaze, but is there such a thing? I don't think Mom's had this much glaze. I'll say that. But she should have included the glaze ingredients and quantities in her recipe. So this is how it's kind of, we're covering up those cracks and gluing them on. So I'm just not worried about it. We have all this lovely glaze pulling at the bottom. To try to pull that back up. Get it to go. If the cake was warm, you'd want to probably do this slower and maybe in steps to allow the warm cake to absorb the glaze and soak into it instead of just pouring down the sides. But who's not going to be impressed if you pulled this out to serve to guests? I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to let glaze pulled at the bottom. Ugh. No, they're going to love it. They're going to love it and be impressed. And then when they taste it, Yep. And whatever's in the inside, I'm not going to be able to get to that, but that's okay. What do you think? Sisters? This glaze is not quite how Mom and Granny would have done it, but I'm okay with that. I put my spin on things, I'm allowed. Looks great, thanks. Yeah, hers was definitely thinner. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna keep futzing with this, but I don't know if that's super exciting content, so we're gonna just call it quits there and go ahead and slice it. I can't see. I wish I lived closer. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, we'll have some of this in the freezer for next time you come visiting. Let's see here. Okay. I wanted to cut the non-crumbly side, so that's this side. What's nice is the texture of the glaze when you let it set, kind of gets flaky. As you're eating it, it's kind of pleasant. Let's see how we did. There's the, is it gonna focus? Focus! Look at that. So see, that side didn't have a gap. All right. Get some extra glaze on here. There we go. How did I not enjoy this when I was a child? There's no chocolate. Why bother? Oh my gosh, so silly. Youth. This is fantastic. Heather, are you running errands today? Can you stop by and get some of this cake? Okay, I'm pleased. I'm very happy. Even with the gap, like, who's gonna know? Who's gonna care? Nobody. Perfect. It's fantastic. It's thick. You have a nice crumb. Let me do what Hollywood and Mary Berry would do. Do some of this. It's a good bake. Oh, let me talk about that real quick. So I like to, especially on something this big, like cookies, obviously I don't do this, but bigger things like cakes and whatever, I like to check the internal temperature to make sure that it's baked properly throughout. So this was the guy I used. See, it's pretty long. It's like, I don't know, what, 4 inches maybe? So I poked it down almost to the bottom. It went in pretty far. And cake should be somewhere between 200 to 210 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So it was like 204, 205. So I went to, as I went to pull it out, it was like clean, 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 clean. And then at the very bottom, it was gooey, which told me that the bottom of the cake wasn't baked. So even though like the top half was at the right temperature, the bottom clearly was not. I don't know where on this thing the actual temperature is taken. Like, is it along the length of it? It just gives you an average of the temperatures along the length. I don't know how that works, what that technology is. It's a beautiful handmade cake, never dry it, correct. And so that was at like an hour and a half, hour, maybe 35. And I could tell just from looking at it, it was pretty pale. So I'm like, no, I don't think this is good. So I did the temperature. It read fine, but then as I pulled it out, the bottom bit definitely had wet batter on it. So I put it back in for I ended up doing it another almost 30 minutes. I do have 2 oven thermometers in, like independent oven thermometers in there to help me make sure that the oven temperature is right. One thing I did, because I kind of normally do it just for things to be easier to grab out of the oven, is I baked the cake pan on a plate, on a baking sheet, so that it was easier to grab out. So I wonder if that prevented some of the heat from transferring up the bottom of the cake, and that's why even though the top was done, the bottom wasn't. So just some things to keep in mind as you're baking. Like, definitely, even if you're doing the internal temperature, still make sure, like, obviously if the bottom is coming out wet, it's just not done, even if the top is at the right temperature. And you want it that pretty golden color. And yeah. Any questions? Have I covered everything? Yeah, we talked about it all. You can do this in a loaf pan. It's a pretty, I'm gonna say you would probably need 2 loaf pans, like 2 bread, kind of typical bread loaf pans. Probably need 2 of them for one of these. You should be able to half this very easily. Let's see, 1 stick of butter, 1.5 cups of sugar, 3 eggs, half a teaspoon extract, half a teaspoon zest, 1.5 cups of cake flour, an 1/8 of a teaspoon. You could easily half this if you want to just do a half of it at a time. This was one of those desserts we often had at like the holidays, just kind of sitting for anybody to enjoy at any time. I bet blueberries would be good inside this cake. Yeah, this would be another good option for strawberry shortcake, honestly. Or cranberries with orange glaze. Ooh, at the holidays? Color. That would be good too. But you could definitely use this for like a base for strawberry shortcake or blueberry shortcake. Yeah, orange glazed cranberries. You could stir cranberries into this. I'm having ideas. I'm having thoughts. Maybe what we could do is try Mom's 2-step pound cake sometime during the holidays and turn it into like a holiday flavor with some cranberries, some walnuts or pecans, an orange glaze. Something like that would be really nice. And we can that's a way we could test out the 2-step pound cake and think of the difference between the two and which one we prefer. So yeah, maybe we'll do that in a couple months. What's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, next week. So before we get into the fall stuff, because I think we technically have another week of a week and a bit of blueberry shortcake would be a fun idea. Yeah, any kind of berry I think would make great shortcake. Is maybe next week I wanted to do a chocolate flavored something. Haven't done chocolate yet as a live, so I was thinking maybe a brownie would be nice. Maybe we'll do some sort of a brownie next week. If you have any requests, just drop a comment and I'll check those and see if anyone has any particular requests. I think next week we'll do a brownie, and then the week after we'll get into like a pumpkin flavor or maybe an apple, something very fall, because we're going to be heading into some fall baking. Maybe even something savory. You don't always have to do something sweet. But here's a last little, although I think lemon is good year round. But this was in theory a last little summer treat. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed it all, or if you're watching this later and you ever are baking along, please let me know that you've tried these recipes, and I would love to see pictures. You can follow me on Instagram and show me your pictures. I haven't had her brownies in a long time. The topping Mom put on, we'll talk about that. Let me think about it, because I feel like I could elevate that, but I don't want to upset family members for changing Mom's brownie topping, but it's fine. If you like the video, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can be here for all future bake-alongs, and join me one day in the baking. I try to put the instructions up on Fridays, so with the announcement of the live, so that you could gather and decide if it's something you would want to bake along with me, that you can join in on the baking on the day. And then if you're baking this later, obviously, I would love to know how it came out. If you have any thoughts, maybe your pound cake is a different method. I'd love to hear kind of how your family makes their pound cakes, if you have a family pound cake recipe like we do. We have several. But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for joining me today in my kitchen, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye, everybody. Here's my thank you screen. Okay, bye.